I thought I would talk about what I really think about Tokyo. For those of you who love Tokyo, travel to Tokyo, maybe are considering moving to Tokyo, or maybe even are living in Tokyo. And right now, yes, I'm filming this in Tokyo, in my apartment. It took me a while of living here and really jumping to the culture to kind of understand or realize some of these things. And if you agree or disagree, leave in the comments down below. Without further ado, let's get started. So first of all, I think people in Tokyo, Japanese people overall, are really helpful and really nice. First of all, one of the reasons I love Tokyo is because it feels so safe. Like, it just feels really safe. And I think the really helpful attitude that most Japanese people have contributes to this. Because when you're traveling and overwhelmed and if people aren't helpful, that just is more stressful. Whereas in Tokyo, I always feel like, okay, if I need help, like I can ask this densha tenin or like really anyone, and they're pretty helpful. Omoiyari or omotenashi is like hospitality or consideration for other people. And I feel like you definitely see that in Tokyo. And I feel like in Tokyo, you're gonna get more points. In Japan, you're gonna get more points if you're polite, for sure. So politeness is definitely a value that's emphasized. And sometimes it can feel a little oppressive. Like, I definitely feel extra self-conscious in Japan about what I'm doing, or if I'm being loud, or if I'm being intrusive in public spaces, things like that. So I guess it's like slightly double-edged, but overall I think it's fine. It's not been a big issue for me. And I'm more on the quiet and reserved side anyways, so I think I fit into Tokyo pretty well. But sometimes I overhear foreigners like speaking in English about how they're kind of surprised because Tokyo is quieter or more lonely than they were expecting. And I definitely kind of had a little bit of that culture shock the first time I came to Tokyo. Like, versus, right, if you go to like Mexico, I feel like everyone's really friendly and people would like literally just come talk. It's just very like, it's just different. The culture is just different. Tokyo, compared to other cities or even going in the outskirts of Tokyo, people begin to get more friendlier and they begin to get more talkative, like once you go outside of Tokyo. But Tokyo itself, I think it's very conservative in a way, which is kind of funny. Yeah, I guess similar in America, like if you think about the Bay Area versus like the Midwest or something. This one is kind of a more nuanced thing that I realized, but I would say overall Japan has a really balanced society, and balance is something I talk a lot about on my channel. The way that I mean that it's balanced is that I feel like Japanese people really promote self-care and healthiness, even though working in Japan, it can be busy and stressful. And I know a lot of my friends like work really hard at their jobs in Japan too. Yeah, you work hard, but then there also is this expectation that you would do self-care. Japanese society, especially in Tokyo, they actually really try to promote well-being. So there's magazines of like how to self-care after work, or there's like generally there's restaurants serving more well-balanced food. Products that you would see at like Matsumoto Kiyoshi or like any of the drugstores, there's a lot of like self-care or like general wellness products. In, I think, Japanese culture and work ethic, there is a lot of philosophies of being balanced or finding some passion in your work, or you know, those kind of things. This point is like a little hard to communicate, but hopefully you understand the meaning. Then I would say this is just a small thing, but I think the foreigners in Tokyo all somehow take on a somewhat Japanese slant. And I didn't notice this until being here for a while. You start to notice the foreigners in Japan, like the Americans or any culture they're from, once they lived here for a while, they start to become like Japaneseified a little bit. If you're from like Brazil or something, like you can't really just come here and just totally maintain your cultural roots. I think most people, when they live in Tokyo, they do get influenced lifestyle and mannerism wise. So that's kind of just a little niche thing I noticed. Tokyo is a huge city and there's so much to explore. Like, I feel like I've really gone out of my way to explore so much of Tokyo and go on adventures all around, but yet there's like infinitely more to explore. And I think this is because Japanese people are really hardworking and they also put a lot of detail into things. So it's not just like the main busy touristy streets that are fun. Even little side streets, there's so much care and consideration put into different storefronts, into different businesses. And I've lived in like LA, New York, Shanghai for a bit, even Seoul for a bit, but somehow I feel that out of all of these places, Tokyo feels like there's the most to do, the most to explore, the most to just see and take in. Tokyo is just a huge city with so much to explore. Another thing that I noticed about Tokyo is that it's a very what in Japanese would be called sugoshiyasui city, so like easy to live in. The subways run late, you can get whatever you need, like food, drinks, lifestyle products at a convenience store. Open 24 hours, vending machines are so convenient to live in. Another thing that I noticed is that there's a pretty underlying kind of like wealth / privilege divide between working class people, which is most of the people in Tokyo, I would think, and like the inherited wealth, or there might be like a term for it, but basically like big corporation owners or like royal people even. Like there's kind of that divide that I started noticing once I lived here a little bit more. Another perspective that I think about Tokyo, and I've spent some time in China as well as Korea, but I really appreciate this about Tokyo in particularly is that I feel like even though it's a modern society, which means to a certain degree, a lot of things are surface level, appearance-based, externalized, I do think that Japanese culture is very deep. I feel like a lot of that deeper philosophy is present as you're going about Tokyo or living in Tokyo. One, I think, influence of this is Shintoism, where it's the Japanese religion of believing there's like a living spirit in all things. So for example, something like Shintoism, I think you can really see even in such a metropolitan modern city like Tokyo. Even in a lot of the advertising, there's deeper themes of like life, death, the meaning of life. I feel like Japan has this pretty deep philosophy towards life, and it shows even on very everyday surface level things, even in just like the marketing and stuff. I think Japanese people are deep too. Another thing I noticed about Tokyo is that art is more prevalent in some ways. So for example, when you're walking through the subway, you see so much art. And so much of the advertisement, they use art as a medium instead of photography. Whereas I noticed in America, a lot more of the medium is like film, photography. Like if you're in the New York subway station, a lot of the ads you see are like photographs or models or like commercials, like films. In Japan, even the commercials or the public PSAs, a lot of it is like hand-drawn or illustrated or animated. So I think that's really cute. I'm trying to like find an example. Like, I don't know, the other handout I have is like an anime handout. Let's see. So like, okay, this is like literally just some anime poster. This is Given, this anime, but it's like you just walk in a bookstore and there's stuff like this. Like, this is so cute. And I love how Japanese people portray so much of daily life through art. And that's really prevalent anywhere you go in Tokyo. Art is a very common communication method. Whereas in America, I feel like, would there even be like a movie poster printout? Like, I feel like Japanese people are very traditional. Like, people use notebooks. There's like printouts and flyers. And I love flyers. Like, I feel like people in America think flyers are kind of stupid or outdated, but I love just like physical mementos. So I think Japan is really cute and traditional in that sense, and just get appreciation for art. Art as in hand-drawn art or illustration art. Not that film or photography is not art. That's not what I'm saying. The last thing I noticed about Japan, and this is something that always concerns me, like I'm always concerned about the impact of tourism and in a sense like cultural gentrification of some sort. I don't really know how to describe it, but I feel like even though Tokyo gets so much tourism and is just increasing year by year, the amount of tourists, I think it's amazing that Tokyo is able to maintain its culture and uniqueness despite such a massive amount of tourists. Shibuya, right, is such a big tourist location. Every tourist is gonna go to Shibuya, but local people also go to Shibuya. It's still very much a part of just daily Tokyo life. Like Shibuya, you go to Shibuya to drink, go to Shibuya to transfer your train. But whereas somewhere in America, like Times Square, for example, now it has the connotation of being like a touristy place, or it's very touristy. So New Yorkers would like avoid Times Square. But somehow in Japan, the tourism has like a symbiosis with the city itself. And I think most locals coexist with the tourism without it affecting their fundamental lifestyle or culture. which I think is actually such a hard balance to strike. So I'm amazed that year after year, Tokyo does such a good job of tourism. You would think that Tokyo businesses, right, like in an attempt to make more money from tourists, they would start promoting things to attract or appeal to like American people or Chinese people or wherever in the world people are visiting from. You think that they would try to market to foreigners to get more money, but no, I think like they are focused on the essence of their business and still marketing to locals or just doing their thing without excessively trying to capture the tourism market. So I think that allows Japan to still stay really authentic to what it is without being phenomenally impacted by tourism. I mean, yeah, sure, you'll go to like Don Quixote or other stores and see like a tax-free sign at most, right? But I don't think it's particularly slanted towards tourism. Tokyo's just doing its own thing. And so I think it strikes that really immaculate balance of tourism. Also, I've been alive when globalism was already very much a thing. So even my first time coming to Tokyo in middle school and high school and all the times after that, globalism was very much a thing. So it's not like I've ever seen Tokyo before tourism ever happened. So I can't be like, oh, it's completely unaffected. But from what I've seen over the years, Tokyo has been relatively unchanged by tourism, which I think is not an easy feat. So I really think that's cool about Tokyo. And then the last thing, I kind of talked about this point already, but Tokyo compared to other places in Japan is a very external based city, definitely more materialistic. People here are a lot more fashionable. There's a lot more shopping and just kind of appearance based things. It's a very external society in some ways, I think. But the interesting balance is that I think Japanese culture fundamentally has a lot of holistic wellness, which is why I like to come here a lot, because I am passionate about holistic wellness and that's a big part of my coaching as well. So I think like Japan's unique way of seeing healthiness and a healthy lifestyle, their balanced philosophy towards living and holistic wellness and diet and stuff balances out the external slant that Tokyo has. And it's a very interesting mix, and I think it's very unique in a way too. So for example, like the Bay Area feels very techy and it doesn't feel super balanced. It just kind of feels like tech just runs rampant, like tech finance. Bay is just very techy. So I think the balance there could be better. But Tokyo, for example, while being increasingly more metropolitan and fast-paced, also has a lot of traditional Japanese elements still in it. Like you would go somewhere and see like a local festival, or you would see more local traditional shops. So it's this unique balance. And I think people in Tokyo are very diverse too. And there's just sort of like this acceptance for diversity. Don't get me wrong, I love Korea too, but when I go to Korea, sometimes I feel, and I haven't gone in a while, but when I was younger going to Korea, I felt more of an expectation to be this one thing or look this one way or dress this one way. And sometimes in the Bay Area, I feel this pressure to like be this one kind of person or have this one kind of job in tech. But Tokyo, I feel like it's very balanced. Like everyone is becoming increasingly more digital, more busy, living more of like an office lifestyle, but at the same time it's still balanced with like traditional elements and very diverse too. Like the fashion is very diverse, the way people express and live in Tokyo is diverse too, even though there's kind of like the norm, let's say, in Tokyo. So I think it's a unique balance. And then I guess my last disclaimer is I haven't explored much of the, what's the word? Underground subcultures of Tokyo yet. Like I haven't really explored that much, so I can't speak too much about the subculture of Tokyo, but it definitely exists. It's very interesting as well. So I think just the fact that a city can uphold so many different kinds of people and lifestyles is very unique to Tokyo. I wanted to make this video about like my thoughts on Japan, but honestly I've mostly been in Tokyo and I feel like Tokyo itself is not representative of Japan, so I couldn't really make the video yet, but maybe one day. So anyways, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe. Feel free to leave anything in the comments down below, and I'll see you soon.